Welcome back to our special election night coverage here on ABC6. I'm John DeLuca.
And I'm Tiffany Murphy. We are talking numbers tonight. Let's go to the Republican headquarters for the state of Rhode Island in Warwick tonight with our own Ryan Medeiros. Ryan.
John, Tiffany, largely positive vibes here in Warwick, where the young Republicans tell me they are cautiously optimistic about the national race despite some tough losses locally here in Rhode Island. Some big wins for former President Donald Trump tonight, including a major win in the battleground state of Ohio. Now, those young Republicans tell me, while things are looking good early, it is still very early in the evening. Now, later on tonight, you'll hear from State Representative Patricia Morgan on her accusations of voter fraud in Portsmouth, Rhode Island earlier today. We'll have that again on our 11 o'clock show this evening. For now, in Warwick, I'm Ryan Medeiros, ABC6 News.
All right, Ryan, thank you. We're joined now by our political analyst, Providence College political science professor, Dr. Myers. You heard Ryan there say, locally, the Republicans don't have a lot to cheer about, but nationally, they're all getting jazzed up by the performance of Donald Trump. Can they take some solace in that, you think? And what does that mean for the state of Rhode Island, given how Donald Trump did here?
Well, they certainly can. It's important to bear in mind that it's still early and that none of the battleground states have been called, although it looks like Trump is going to win Georgia and North Carolina. And if he wins the Sun Belt states, as it looks likely that he will, then Democrats, Harris, will have to sweep in the northern tier of Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin in order to win the election, and that might be a bit of a tall order. So they do have reason to be optimistic regarding the presidential election. But Rhode Island's not a battleground state, as we all know.
And it's not, but I do think this is interesting, and John pointed this out earlier. The numbers have come in, and obviously we are still waiting for those mail ballots to count. We know they're in three buckets, right? Day of voting, early voting, and mail ballots, and those mail ballots haven't been counted yet. But the numbers are not that dramatic when you look at Rhode Island and the voter turnout and the number of registered Democrats compared to Republicans.
That's right, and so they can take solace in that as well. There is a large pool of voters in this state that will vote for a Republican presidential candidate and potentially a Republican gubernatorial candidate, maybe even a U.S. Senate candidate. But as of yet, we haven't seen any evidence that Republicans can crack majority support in this state. They haven't had that in a long time.
And Dr. Myers, as you look at the ballot questions, the one that really jumps out to everybody, of course, is the Constitutional Convention. Every 10 years, it goes to the voters. Do you want to see any revamping of the Constitutional Convention? And when it first came out, people were like, yeah, maybe it won't be a bad idea. And then all of a sudden, people got educated about it, I'm suspecting, and all of a sudden, that just swung the other way altogether.
That does appear to be what happened. As you say, John, the early polls suggested that it was going to be a very close race for the Constitutional Convention referendum, but I think what happened in the aftermath was that the no campaign really kicked into high gear and scared, quite frankly, a lot of voters into thinking that a Constitutional Convention would take away their rights.
And we know that they have not voted yes for that since the 80s, so they've had a lot of no's in that time, every 10 years.
Absolutely. We're one of the only states where voters get to weigh in on whether or not to have a constitutional convention every 10 years. But no state in the country has had a constitutional convention since the early 90s. This is a very long drought in terms of constitutional reform in this country.
Thank you so much for your insight. We will have more on local, state, and national battles coming up in about 30 minutes.